everyone. Welcome back to this week's Cat's Eye on the Future, the show where we take a look at various forms of divination to see what may be coming down the road that may affect your world and your future. First, as always, the legal disclaimer. All readings on this show are used for entertainment purposes only. But like any form of entertainment, they can be used to add to your own store of information that can be used when making your own very personal decisions. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on with this week's show. Now last week, due to that wonderful full-hour interview with Kveldoffer Gunderson, we didn't get a chance to look at current events at all. So this week, I'm just going to dive right in and look into what may be coming ahead in the next week and see what energies are likely to be the greatest influences during that time period. So, our usual question this week is worded as, what are the most important energies and or events likely to be affecting the world in the next week? That is, July 29th through August 4th, 2014. Now first, let's look at the cards. And if you would like to follow along with me at home, you can find a link to these cards at my website, melodipsychicreadings.com. That's Melody spelled with an I. And then just go and check on the Cat's Eye Show tab for episode 11. For everyone else that doesn't have access to the web right now, I'll do my best to describe each card as we go through this reading. Now, the first card we have in this reading is the Stranger. This is a tall man in a sort of robe-like garment, kind of Renaissance looking, who stands partly in shadow just behind a door that's now open. This card usually indicates a new person, event, or idea is about to come into the picture or onto the scene. As the first card in the reading, it also sets the tone for the rest of the energies to follow. And my first impression is that in world events, there's likely to be a new something to deal with coming up very shortly. Now, this new something could be a new person, or perhaps a national leader. It could be a new idea, a new theory, or simply some totally new situation that really wasn't expected. We get hints that this may be a combination of a person and just such a situation, because the next card is the Voyage. Now, the Voyage is an old-fashioned sailing ship shown on the water near a map of the land, sort of like the kind of charts you'd see from the 15th, 16th century with nautical charts and marks on it. In a personal reading, this card can mean a person moving forward in their life's journey, or perhaps actually taking a trip or even a vacation. In this case, it probably means that the stranger, this new person, situation, or perhaps even idea, is going to move forward and onto the stage of world current events. And I suspect it probably really will be this week, or sometime very soon. If this is a situation, or perhaps even a nation moving into a new role, I do have to wonder if actual naval vessels or navies may be involved. That's just kind of a sense I get. Here, I really feel drawn to Japan's recent attempts to look at ways of improving their military and their self-defense strategies, perhaps laying aside forever, or at least for the near future, the idea that they will always be dependent on others for their self-protection. I think they may simply go ahead and rearm themselves. Of course, ships and voyages can mean a lot of other things too, including in a practical sense, anything from cars to airplanes, or even things like shamanic journeys, or as simple as a carnival cruise ship or a vacation, again, something traveling. Any or all of these may be somewhat up in the air this week, and we are likely to see stories about them in different forms. But as I said, my main draw is towards more military types of issues, especially that naval stuff, seeing the ship, and here's the reason. The next card is the Warrior. Now, the Warrior is depicted as a medieval knight. He's standing tall in his armor, holding his sword point down. He's standing watch in front of a camp full of tents, and those tents sit in front of a castle. He's ready for battle, but he isn't fighting right now. In fact, he's in a defensive position. He's just watching and keeping guard. In a personal reading, this card usually is often about a strong individual. Sometimes it's the intended love interest of a client. It can also be a client's inner warrior or a possible sign of battles to come. I'm feeling a bit of most of these things in this reading, but on more or less an epic scale. Again, we get the stranger, newcomer, new player, and then we combine it with the voyage, ships, and journey. And now we have the warrior, a warrior with his readiness to take the field at any moment. This hints not of direct conflict, but certainly a preparation for it. Again, that kind of defensive, watchful stance. And again, this all comes on the heels of something new or unexpected. This doesn't mean it's totally new in the history of mankind, but just whatever or whomever it is, it's a new factor in the current ongoing world of current events and international situations. The last time we clearly saw the stranger as a primary card at the beginning of the reading was a weekend reading I did on one of my forums where I read. And that was the day before Edward Snowden released his explosive information that's still really upsetting World Apple cards. So, given that, all this energy may very well play out in a less than physical way. I mean, not necessarily be complete warfare, and yet it could still be rather explosive. Especially given the next card, because it's liberation. We have studied before the liberation card. The liberation card is the one that shows the young couple escaping a castle dungeon together on horseback. This is very often a positive card, indicating that a situation that has been stuck has been loosed, or something that may have been holding back a relationship has been set free. The problem with the liberation card is, on its own, we don't know what has been let free. The couple seen on the card could be two lovers running away from an evil person, keeping them from getting married. Or they can be Bonnie and Clyde going off to rob and pillage the next castle. The point is we don't know, because the card doesn't say, and given its place beside the warrior card, this liberation and warriors makes me think there may be at least some conflicts going on that may break out where they are not expected next week. Places that have mostly been quiet for a while, like Central and South America, or even India versus Pakistan, are going to be places to watch, along with, of course, Japan, though I think at the moment I feel more like that's a preparation for war in Japan, or possible war, not an outright conflict just yet. But some of those other places, some of the ones that normally don't make the news, that's where it feels like there might be something happening. And unlike some previous weeks, nothing feels really dire. But again, more like a continued build-up, but perhaps some brand new twists, and probably some new players coming on this big chessboard of what is possibly this overall preparation for something larger. Now, leading to that is the final card before the runes, and this card is friendship. This card shows three friends sitting in an old-fashioned pub having a drink together. Just off stage, you see the hand of the fourth person and they're holding a beer. We can't tell if they're heading towards the table and may change that very tight, close-knit energy of the friends already sitting there. That could be something really highly positive. It could help them engage in whole new and expressive ways. But it could also be highly disruptive, depending on the personality of the new person. Or if that new person, that stranger, could walk right on by, crossing the pub and going to another table. Again, we simply don't know, and the cards don't say. Now, this card tends to be highly positive, this friendship card, stressing as it does the good fellowship and joy that can come from being with other like-minded people, especially people that you trust. But when you combine it with the stranger, such as seen as the new person coming onto the card, then the voyage, the warrior, and liberation energies, you gotta give some second thoughts to this positive idea. On the other side, because these energies do also stand on their own, the energy is out there for people, tribes, and nations actually to work together as friends and allies if they chose. But there's also some energy out there for the very same thing, to face disruption or even possibly some realliances, real alliesment, if for lack of a better term. That's not a real word, but what I mean was when current or former allied partners start to review their friendships, and some of this may even go back to the previous revelations of the last stranger, that of Mr. Snowden. So again, what we might have is some disruption in friendships, some thinking about it, some possible ways of trying to work around it, and just a little unease in that department, possibly brought on by this stranger. And now we finally get to the runes. We have two of them this time. We have Gabo or gift, and Kenaj, which is the lighted torch or boil. Now, the Gabo rune can mean marriage, it can mean union. So we have both a concept of things being given or gifted. Again, along with those alliances are the coming together of people again, especially people truly joined together as you would find in a marriage. The Kenaj rune can mean several things. First, it is a torch that lights up the darkness. Again, it hints at secrets and things that need to break out and be seen. The torch can illuminate. But it's also a boil, almost about to burst open on the skin, and it has very similar energy to the Liberation card when it presents in this context, except whereas the Liberation card, it's already exploded and out. The Kenaj rune is that energy building up and coming into being. Finally, I've always seen Kenaj as kind of the sideways volcano rune, a situation that might be about to erupt but isn't quite there yet, again kind of reinforcing that almost but not quite to go with the Liberations blasting out. These two runes give me a bit more possible information on at least some of what's going on here. In addition to Japan naval buildup, which again I think is an expression of energy, I really don't think it's the main one. I'm getting hints of either a new leader or a new move on the part of some entity. I'm not sure if it's an individual, a group of people, a national government, or even a group of governments. But whoever they are, I think they want to gift some smaller groups, which again could be a person, a group, even a gang, or perhaps a small nation, with something that is potentially Kenaj, something potentially explosive. This explosive potential may be physical in the sense of military equipment or bombs, or it could just be figurative, like information that would prove explosive, that erupting boil if it was released. Again, not necessarily the same things that Mr. Stone released, but that kind of really explosive revelations and secrets revealed. Whatever it is, I think it will be an attempt by the stranger, whoever that is, to encourage or buy friendships off someone or some group, perhaps even again a small nation or even a street gang, and be seen as a way to break some sort of deadlock. In other words, they want to break something that's been frozen. With the warrior right in the middle of this reading, my hunch is that it involves either a long-term defensive strategy on the part of the entity giving out the gift, or it could be viewed as part of a larger overall preparation for something. In other words, again, kind of putting those chess pieces on the board and getting them in place. There may also be hints of it trying to unblock something that's been stuck for a long time, where this new energy or this new person, new whatever on the scene says, I really want to break this block, and I think to do this, I can gift this to somebody else. So that needs to be kept in mind as well. Again, my thoughts keep going to the military, international side of things, but there's also possible that this could be played out in the symbolic world of business or politics. So expect stories about all things new and strange. New discoveries, strange incidents, new actors and actresses, new famous people, the new is the new. That's kind of the theme, one of the themes for this week. Also, expect stories about things getting loose, breaking free. These can be great things, old stories about free love, or, free cars, or free samples, but also arguments, marriages, trips, ships, and perhaps even a real-life volcano to add a bit of Earth-based interest to the evening news. Again, that kind of explosive energy, all of it would fit here. On a personal level, we need to be aware of new opportunities to reach out of your comfort zone. You may have to battle a bit to get a handle on what these are, but you need to be aware of them because they may come on suddenly, but that you don't want to necessarily reject what's offered either. Because if there is something that you want to attempt, you may need to use that kind of your own inner warrior strength to battle that out. It's not going to be simple, and it's not going to be easy. However, this is a great week for celebrating with good friends. Going to weddings would be a great one. That gaybo gift marriage room, that's actually the word for weddings in some Scandinavian languages. So again, anything that unites people, picnics, taking care of deep personal needs. Artistic expression, especially the type that just has to get out there. Martial arts, great way to use that inner warrior imagery and energy without actually hurting somebody, except perhaps accidentally your opponent. But again, it's in a controlled and really focused manner. I already mentioned vacations, travel, this sort of expansion. Use the expansion and the stranger energy to get new and good experiences for yourself. But again, be careful of things that sound just sort of new and appear to be brought maybe in a friendly manner that you don't really trust. You want to really trust your gut on these, because they are really, it could be something quite serious. However, just about everything that looks a bit suspect on the world stage in this reading, as I was pointing out, can be turned around for the positive benefit of as individuals. Just concentrate on the good aspects of these cards and pay attention in case you start seeing bad ones. Things to watch out for, given this kind of energy reading, would be battles with teenagers over their liberation, their allotted freedoms, or strangers, again, as I pointed out, who may seem to disrupt existing friendships or offer something that just doesn't feel right. And you'll probably do pretty well if you just really pay attention. And remember, just because something is strange and new doesn't mean it's always bad either. It's just that as people were programmed to find the new a bit threatening. And that's because in our distant past, the new usually wasn't a really good thing. But nowadays, the media would like to have to celebrate everything new, and I think this week it's really going to be an excess of that. As if everything new was wonderful, and that anything from the past was boring and useless, and you should forget about it. This is a week for finding your truth somewhere in the middle of that. It's probably the best lesson to take for this reading for personal use, that, you don't want to just rush off with a stranger, but you don't want to totally ignore the message either, because some of the new information may be very useful. You may even make friends out of it, or new friends, but you want to be kind of cautious too, not to upset or overthrow the good stuff that's been there already. Now, otherwise, I think we'll just have to keep watching current events to see how these energies play out. But for now, I think that's about as much as we're going to get out of these cards and the runes for today. So it's time to get a nice cup of tea, sit back, and look at a more personal reading sent in by one of you lucky listeners. We'll be right back with that special personal reading right after these short messages.
All the music used on the show today is from musicalley.com, your source for free-to-air music for podcasts. The artists place their music up for free to air in hopes that you, the listener, will visit their site and purchase some of their outstanding musical offerings. So after the show, why not visit musicalley.com and explore their extensive playlist?
And she sings, she goes home in the evening with the dew all on her wings.
Do you have questions? The cards have answers. If you would like a personal reading with Melody, just go to my website, melodipsychicreadings.com. That's Melody with an I, psychicreadings.com, for information, or email me at melodyreader@gmail.com. Readings are available using Skype, phone, email, or even in person if you are lucky to live in Ireland. Why not find out what special messages the cards have just for you and book a private reading today?
And see me from beneath the sea, the best in all of Ireland. See me from beneath the sea, the best in all of Ireland.
Welcome, everyone, back to part 2 of Cat's Eye on the Future. This is the part of the show where we look at the personal questions sent in by you, the listeners, to see if we can get any insights from the cards and runes that can gain some insight into your personal situation. Now, tonight's question is from Mama Bear, and she writes, "The large organization I work for is about to have large layoffs, and make radical changes to help save it financially. Can you do a reading and ask if the changes the organization is going to make are for the best or the worst for me? I think the company is going to implode and there will be some negative customer outcomes, so I'm curious to see what you would think. Also, I think I'm fine job-wise, so this is really only a very small concern. Mama Bear. Now, I did the question this way. I said, are the changes planned at Company X's organization going to affect me in a positive or a negative way? Meaning Mama Bear. Well, the first card we have is the tree. This is a picture of a tree with roots going down deep into the ground and the branches spreading out up above. This card in an employment reading is usually about being rooted in place or a place you can grow and branch out. Unfortunately, the second card is no. If we were doing a one-card reading, then I would suggest that the changes will not affect Mama Bear, and this card coming between the World Tree and the next card, which is the Body card, made me suspicious about that. Now, the Body card, which is sometimes called the creepy card, this is the one with the veins and the body kind of dissected, looks like an old medical textbook. It's usually about the material world or health. Now, I know from Mama Bear's longer letter that I kind of edited a bit so that we wouldn't have any idea who her employer was. I know that she works for a health-related organization. So we have the first signs here that even if she doesn't experience a direct layoff or something equally drastic, these changes in her company may affect her ability to stay, or perhaps the health of the organization. It may even affect if she wants to stay and keep her roots in that particular company. Now, the final card we have here is the Fool, which usually means starting over, starting again. And then we combine it with the rune Rido, which is riding, or traveling, or moving on. Hopefully, in this case, we're moving forward. So while I'm not sensing a direct threat to Mom's job, just as she foresaw, I also get the sense that the changes may encourage her to look elsewhere, and that it is likely to be sooner rather than later that she may be leaving that job, or at the very least, there's a chance this reading could be about promotion or change in status within her current workplace. But if it is, I really get the feeling that's temporarily, because the Rido rune feels more like she's going to eventually be moving elsewhere. So that said, I decided to take a quick look at how Mama Bear's overall employment prospects look for the next 3 years. Now, I phrased the question like this. What are the energies or events that concern Mama Bear's employment over the next 3 years that we should know about? Okay, now here we get 3 really positive cards that suggest that whatever happens with her current job, Mama Bear is going to be a very happy woman, at least career-wise. Once again, even though we thoroughly and completely shuffle the cards, we get the Tree card first, suggesting that her employment, or more to the point her career, is one that she can keep putting down roots and really spread her branches in. Personally, it's very good for her personal world tree, essentially. The Stars card follows this, and this card is all about connections, as well as going after your dreams, sort of like reaching for the stars. So you have the constellations coming together and making sense, and we also have a job or career that works on many levels, and it may even stretch your abilities just a bit, but in a very good way. You stretch out to reach out and touch that other star. Now the Peace card, a lovely cathedral with the sun shining through the stained glass, suggests contentment and serenity about her career, and whatever jobs or job choices she may take during this time. Finally, the rune of Thala, or inheritance, suggests that she is doing the work she was born to do, either from inherited skills, or when she has worked on using inboard, her native talents, possibly a job that runs through her family, or talents that run in her family line. Since the rune also means homeland, it suggests that even though we got the Rido rune for traveling, she probably isn't going to make any major geographical moves in order to keep working, unless it is to return to a place she feels more at home. But it would have to be a very voluntary thing. However, most likely, this rune is about her inherited skills, her talents being expressed to the fullest, and in a way that helps secure both her home and her future. In other words, the inheritance of her family line. It's all very good. It's all working together. So things are pretty uncertain, and may not ultimately work out in her current workplace, which, after all, may disappear. We didn't actually read on that particular aspect of it. But these changes, even with these changes, her overall career future for the next 3 years is about as positive as you can get, especially given that we're in an economic turndown and the fact that there may be a job change in there, but it all looks positive, which is really, really great to see. Well, that was a really great reading, and it's a really upbeat way to end the show. The show's a little shorter this week because we're having a lot of thunderstorms and wild weather here in Ireland, and I really want to make sure that we get on the air and not just have to have a repeat. If this happens in the future, you may get sort of a best of Cat's Eye in an emergency, but I think it's better to have a shorter show and to have a show than to risk trying to keep going on, because I see the clouds outside are forming again, and it looks like Thor is about to bless us with another thunderstorm. So remember, if you would like your question used on the air, just send me a message at my email, melodyreader@gmail.com. That's Melody with an I, reader, one word, gmail.com, and put show reading in the subject line. I can't promise to use all the readings on the show, but I will promise to look them all over before deciding which ones to use. However, I think given the way I hear things in the distance, it's a good time to wrap up the show for this week. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to me tonight here on Monday nights at the Time Monk Radio Network, my listeners who listen on YouTube after the show, and my new audience coming in at Pagan Radio UK. Welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy it and will join us for many more episodes in the future. But for now, it's time to say goodnight and bright blessings until we meet again.
But here's a health to the company and one to my lass.
You have been listening to Cat's Eye on the Future, the show where we take a glimpse of the energies coming soon into your world and into your future. Be sure to join us again next time when we explore another chapter of Cat's Eye on the Future.
Again. But here's a health to the company and one to my last. Let's drink and be